who are you really? How should you answer that question? Does it depend on who's asking? Well, maybe. I mean, surely my boss doesn't care about what my favorite meme is. And maybe my Tinder date doesn't really want to know what I think is the most important thing about leading teams.
Tell me about yourself.
Well, I work in education. I moved into that space because I'm really passionately invested in the idea that every student should have the opportunity to shape their own futures. I do actually tend to do that. Should the answer go deeper than my likes and feelings, to my values? How can I be authentic without a definitive answer to that question? Well, maybe the answer to that last part depends on how we define authentic. Have you ever seen this meme? Here's one definition. On the surface of it, that sounds like authentic, right? An uncompromising commitment to who you really are. But that brings us back to our very first problem. When I first left the corporate space to move into education, I had bright and shiny ambitions about the kind of teacher I was going to be. And they mostly centered around forming really strong relationships with the kids I would teach. I wanted them to know that they were valued and important. I wanted to meet them where they were and take them where they needed to be. And in the pre-service training before that very first day that the students arrived, I admit I paid little to no attention to some of the more mundane routine things like lining up and classroom procedures, because for me, that was not where the learning was at. I quickly found out that without some kind of structure, without some kind of shared language and community norms, we wouldn't be able to make progress towards our goals. Yes, it was important, and it still is, that kids feel loved and seen and heard. But it's also important that they learn to read. And to do that, there needs to be time carved out in the day for me to give that instruction. And for that to happen effectively, I need systems in place. I had to shift my thinking from being one that was purely about the relationship and the connection to implementing some of the things that didn't come naturally to me. Things like expectations around how we would move from one space to another. If I hadn't made that shift, I might have had a very loving, very woke classroom, but probably one also where learning wasn't really a priority and where kids didn't reach their goals. That's just not acceptable. In her mind-blowingly transformative talk on authenticity, Professor Herminia Ibarra talks about a phenomenon called what got you here won't get you there. Think about your life for a moment, a shift that you're trying to make, something you want to achieve or accomplish. Is it possible that what got you here won't get you there? And what does that mean for authenticity? When you decide on a set of values that you want to be true to and aligned to, which you are you referring to? One of the first principles of effective communication or of establishing relationships with anyone really is making connection, right? It's establishing that rapport. Does shifting how you do things to allow that to happen make you inauthentic? I don't think so. Failing to do so, however, could make you ineffective and frustrated. Something that's really clear, no matter which definition of authenticity you subscribe to, is that we're a sum of lots of different things. Our experiences, where we come from, what we value, what we care about. Remember that values determination exercise that I mentioned in a previous video? Dr. John DeMartini, I'll put it in the description to this video again. What is it that you value? And are those things static? Clearly not. You have to shift how you see things and how you define things to respond to the circumstances you find yourself in, or the ways in which your goals change. One of the shifts that I've made is bringing more structure, routine, and process into the way I do things. And that supports me achieving the goals that I want to accomplish, because now those goals don't just involve me. They're also about supporting the people that I serve in getting where they want to. But something that's also become important to me is modes of self-expression like the body art that I love so much, or wearing my hair natural. But these are all forms of self-expression. They are not who I am. Contradictory? While in a perfect world, we would be able to show up as we would like to in every circumstance. Dr. Brené Brown has a much more inclusive definition of authenticity. And for me, that's what being authentic is all about. It doesn't mean that we shouldn't challenge the norms that exist by going against the grain, but it also holds space for us to be able to shift how we express ourselves and what we want to project from minute to minute, depending on the outcome that we want to have. We can change, we do change, and so our values will too. Authenticity is about allowing space for you to show up as all of who you are, for who you are at that moment. So who are you really? The answer to that question probably changes very much depending on circumstance, who's asking, what phase of your life you're in, how you're responding to things. One thing that it should not be is rigid and unchanging, because you'd be doing yourself a disservice. What is authenticity to you? How does it show up for you? When you talk about authentic leadership, are you talking about being transparent and vulnerable? What are the downsides of that? On the 2nd of January, I turned 41 years old. Woohoo! The only problem I have with that is that I really like round numbers, so 40 was my year. How does society treat aging people? Is it something that's taboo? Do you dye your hair for personal expression or to conceal how many grays you have? What does it mean to act your age? Tune in next time. See you soon.